Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 1437, 1437, and Mike Matthews broadcasting from Café Anyway, located somewhere in Podcastro Valleymont. Today, Benita, the disgruntled fiddle player, the brewmaster, will get to a segment called, it's a brand new segment, it's called Really? And yeah, that's not the most original name for a segment, but it pertains to what's going on in the world, it seems. Here at
Mike's Daily Podcast.
The last place on earth, even though it's a short week, it feels like a long week, despite that.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
And yesterday I was walking my dog, and here's usually where I put a barking sound effect. That was fun, yeah, what the heck. I was over by Lake Chabot, and there are people there in Castro Valley, and they like to row. No, they don't. People are afraid of boats in Castro Valley.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
And they don't like the heat. So it was nice. It was cooling off. It's cooler today. And I noticed
Mike's
that I did put the
Daily
heat to work for me.
Podcast.
The heat to work for me.
Yeah!
What I did was I washed my clothes, and instead of using the dryer, I hung up my clothes in the sun. And now they're all cardboardy. But the sun dried them. The sun made my sun tea that I had. The sun, oh look who just walked in, inspired me to bust out my barbecue, my coal barbecue. That was good. Look who walked in. Hi, Mike. It's Benita the Rodeo Queen. How you doing?
Answer this disgruntled fiddle player, tell you what.
What?
That was a beautiful story about you and the sun.
Dun, dun, dun. Here comes the sun. Oh, look who else walked in. Look who came in just now.
Hello, Mike. I make the delicious root beer. I'm the brewmaster. Oh, boy, brewmaster. Root beer.
Wonderful. That's good. And it's very hard to do that voice, and I'm not going to do it anymore today because I'm not in the mood. That's my show's name today is Mood, because I am not in it. So usually I'm the one that goes hysterical when it comes to, oh, I'm planning a trip, and oh, it looks like it's going to be bad weather for this trip. Oh. And everybody else is telling me, Mike, it's not going to be that bad.
And here's today's podcast picture.
Everybody telling me about my trip is basically freaking out, wigging out. It's all people like that. Someone that's going to come out and meet me while I'm in Florida, they're coming from another state. They're like, nah, I'm probably not going to go. Okay. My mom, who I'm going to go see in Daytona Beach, Florida, she's like, might want to change your plans. And every map, okay, this is the tough thing, is you'll see all these reports about Hurricane Irma, but you never ever, and I've talked about this before, they don't show you the path. I'm getting really sick of the media not giving me meat. It's not the meat, it is anything but that, because I was listening to a podcast today about North Korea, and they had three experts on, and they said they were experts of stating the obvious. Well, North Korea detonated a large bomb over the weekend, and it shook everything, and it made people worried. The bomb probably was a hydrogen bomb. Yeah, we know all that, you idiot. That's all and they talk really slow because they're on a talk show and they got to take up as much time as possible. I think if you take a stock in what... And they use all these old phrases and metaphors that nobody have used in 3,000 years. And, well, if you shake this horse out and you look at its jaw and you look at its gift mouth in the face and all these expressions I've never heard of. But they're old-timey. Oh, they just weren't saying, and this podcast that I love to listen to, that's very informative, I'm just gonna tweet them. I'm gonna tweet at them, and I'm going to say, what the H. Hamilton happened to your show? Putting on these idiots. I could have been on that show and talked really slow and sounded all old and gnarled up with my facts and figures that I just pulled out of USA Today. At any rate, the podcast picture today is of you, disgruntled fiddle player.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I agree with you, Mike. That's a bunch of blowhards on the radio and television. I'm sick of it.
That's right, blowhards. That's what they are. Who needs them? Okay. Mike'sDailyPodcast.com is the wonderful website full of colorful pictures and ways to help us out through the Amazon link. Click on the Amazon link, buy whatever it is you're going to buy. That helps us out. There's also the PayPal link. If you'd like to help us out that way, you'll get a special greeting from all the Café Anyway characters. And the more you know, the more you can help out this show, the more thankful we are. And there's all the past interviews I've done with some indie bands and musicians and other interesting folks. So let's get to the segment now called
Really?
Yes, Really. It's called Really. One more time, because that show title name billboard thing didn't go it went fast.
Yeah, no kidding.
Let's do it again.
Really?
Okay, excellent. Here we are with the show called Really. That has a Greek music bed behind it. So nice. Okay. Let's talk about the stating the obvious, and that's, of course, Irma. It's coming towards Florida, and the Caribbean island was pummeled by it. The Caribbean island began to count those that had died in the hurricane's path. The National Hurricane Center said a hurricane watch will likely be called later today for parts of South Florida and the Keys as Irma's Category 5 force pinwheeled eastward through the Caribbean, leaving a wake of leveled neighborhoods, ravaged seafronts, and at least 10 people dead. The Bahamas was next to brace for Irma's rage, winds hitting 180 miles per hour and storm surges capable of swallowing huge sections of the coast. After the Bahamas, Irma's expected path takes aim at Florida, including the ribbon of cities, dense suburbs, and swampland. More than 6 million people from Palm Beach to Miami-Dade counties. Before dawn, Irma was 210 miles east-southeast of Grand Turk Island and moving west-northwest at 17 miles per hour. The Hurricane Center said in its latest bulletin, what Irma has left behind was islands scoured clean by the storm's Okay. Aerial images released by the Dutch Defense Ministry on the island of St. Martin showed scores of homes with roofs sheared off and palm trees stripped bare. French authorities said at least 8 people have died on the island whose control is shared with the Netherlands. That does not quite sound like a sentence. The president of the Territorial Council said that St. Martin is 95% destroyed. Wow. Now, the rest of the story is badly written. Thank you, Washington Post. Hurricane and tropical conditions descended on the Dominican Republic and Haiti today, could move into the central Bahamas and Cuba by tomorrow. Weather Service says the storm was moving at about 17 miles per hour. In Florida, the Coast Guard shifted into hurricane condition whiskey. In the port of Key West, that means sustained gale force winds from a hurricane force storm are predicted by Saturday morning. The full brunt is forecast to arrive sometime Sunday. Do not sit and wait for the storm to come. Remember, we can rebuild your home, not your life, said Governor Rick Scott. Florida has seen Category 5 hurricanes before. Hurricane Andrew roared into South Florida 25 years ago. They had Hurricane Matthew a year ago in October. And yeah, historically powerful storm, blah, blah, blah. They say over and over again. Okay. Well, let's get to the maps, Mike. The map is what I am most interested in, and I went to nhc.noaa.gov, the National Hurricane Center, and they've got a map because nobody else is smart enough to put this map up on their freaking articles. And it looks like, yeah, it is heading towards the the south part, southern tip of Florida, where your Keys are, where Miami is. So yeah, it's gonna hit there. And then they have it in predictions for Monday and Tuesday. It looks like it's getting bigger and it's heading up north towards Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. To which the AP has told us now that the shifting forecast raised the threat to the southeast from fierce Hurricane Irma, prompted emergency declarations in the Carolinas and coastal Georgia, including areas that haven't suffered a direct hit from a major hurricane in more than a century. Georgia Governor Nathan Deal declared a state of emergency yesterday for the state's 100-mile swath of Atlantic coast, which was last struck by a hurricane Category 3 in 1898, that long ago. His South Carolina counterpart, Governor Henry McMaster, declared an emergency for that neighboring state as officials assess the chances of receiving a major hurricane strike there for the first time in nearly 28 years. I didn't want to go on my trip. Did I mention this? I really wanted to just stay home. But I got a lot of pressure put on me from all my friends. You need to go see your mom. You need to go see your mom. So I finally bought a ticket. The plane ticket was cheap enough. And this is over a month ago. I don't think Delta knew that the hurricane was coming. But now apparently airline tickets have gone up. So, I mean, drastically. But then, I didn't want to leave my dog, but I didn't want to leave my house, the comforts of home. But I said, okay, I'm going to go do it. And then this happens. So it's very upsetting. Very upsetting. Makes me go, really? And this guy says it better. Really? Thank you. Yeah, so I guess what the situation is, as life often does, it makes us do things we don't want to do. I am going to go to Florida, and I'm probably going to be helping out. I'm probably going to be part of the rebuilding team or cleaning up team there, it seems, on my vacation. Which makes me never, ever, ever want to, take any vacation time off again. Which that is not healthy. At any rate, it will be interesting. So, I think we're done talking about the damn Irma. Early this morning, the sun released 2 powerful solar flares. The second was the most powerful in more than a decade. It was about 5:10 a.m. Eastern Time. An X-class solar flare, the most powerful sunstorm category, blasted from a large sunspot on the sun's surface. The flare was the strongest since 2015, but it was dwarfed just 3 hours later at 8:02 by an X9.3 flare. The last one of those that occurred was back in 2006. The flares resulted in radio blackouts. High-frequency radio experienced a wide area of blackouts, loss of contact for up to an hour over the sunlit Earth, and low-frequency communication used in navigation was degraded for an hour. The X-class solar flares can cause radiation storms in Earth's upper atmosphere and trigger radio blackouts. So I guess it doesn't really matter to anyone except for those of you that listen to the radio. And finally, Facebook says it found out about $100,000 in ad dollars spending connected to fake accounts likely run from Russia that aim to stir political controversy in the U.S. ahead of last year's presidential election. While the majority of the ads run between June of last year and actually June of 2015 and May of this year did not directly reference the election. They amplified divisive social and political messages across the ideological spectrum. Damn Russians. And we all know what our president thinks of Russia.
I say it's better to get along with Russia than not.
They were connected to about 470 fake accounts and pages on the social network. The company is sharing its findings with U.S. investigators. Our analysis suggests these accounts and pages were affiliated with one another and likely operating out of Russia. The ads align with broader strategy to misinform the public through a new category of attack Facebook calls information operations. They outlined that in a white paper earlier this year. They have deleted the accounts and pages since discovering them. The company has also looked for other ads that may have originated in Russia in a broader search that included U.S. computers with the language set to Russian. In that review, the company found $50,000 spent on over 2,000 ads. So basically, they're as we go outside of Café Anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley, they're like, oh yeah, they spent money. They gave us a bunch of money. We're doing an investigation to find out where they came from. But we took their money. And look at what we're doing. The Russians, look, they actually gave us money. And those awful Russians that gave us money. Let's find out so they're doing their own little investigation. Doing the whole Robert Mueller thing. It's interesting. It's also very... I feel like these ads did have an effect on the election, and people just got misinformed. And you got to look where the information comes from, and that there's meat in your media. Next show, we're going to have the wonderful Madame Rutabaga Valentino and Bison Bentley. Enjoy your day.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!